From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
Montana National Guard troops are back from duty protecting the Capitol for the inauguration. Coming up, find out why those soldiers won't be going the rest of the way home right away.
Who would vandalize the memorial of a fallen trooper? I'm Annie Johnson, and hopefully we can get some answers coming up.
As you can see, lots to talk about here as we head into the fourth quarter of this Wednesday edition of Montana This Morning.
It's all about football lately.
I like
We're
it.
in the fourth half of this show.
There we are. That's
it. It fits the theme of the season.
There we go. Matt, change kind of heading our direction here for the next couple of days, at least for the mountains.
Speaking of quarters, we've got some change. Temperatures into the single digits for most of the area. We do have the wind speeds picking up for parts of the area. There's that quarter, 25 degrees in Ennis right now. The wind speeds have been picking up. Our skies are relatively clear, which is why many of these area temperatures are so chilly. Daytime highs back into the mid-30s. We're creeping those temperatures above the freezing mark, but it will still feel cool when you step outside. We're going to talk about that, our chances of snow, who's going to get impacted the most. That's all coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, staying on theme, the buck always stops with Matt. That's how it works.
I mean,
there you go. 6:30.
what are you going to do?
Move on is what we're going to do. Our top story this half hour, Montana's Army National Guard members are back from Washington, D.C.
About 150 soldiers returned to Montana on 3 C-130s late last night. Governor Greg Gianforte was there to greet the soldiers as they got off the planes. Montana's National Guard soldiers joined about 26,000 National Guard members from all 50 states and 3 territories in the nation's capital. The Montana soldiers assisted with inauguration security.
It's so important. I mean, these men and women stepped up, they left their families, they went away and sacrificed to make sure we had a peaceful transfer of power. They did their job, and I'm thrilled to be here to welcome them home.
Now, the soldiers aren't quite ready to go home yet. They are at Fort Harrison today for demobilization and to return their equipment. Also, they are all being screened for COVID-19.
6:31, staying in Helena. A bill that would expand where and how people could carry firearms has cleared another state legislative committee. The bill would allow people to carry concealed firearms in more places and limit the Montana University system's ability to regulate guns on college campuses. During the debate, committee members voted down a large amendment which would have allowed more restrictions on guns in courthouses and at university sports and entertainment events. The committee also removed a penalty for carrying a concealed weapon without a permit into a bar or restaurant. Democrats opposed all amendments, saying the bill had too many issues to move forward.
I'm afraid the bill is, without that amendment, will not get the support it deserves.
Even though there may be some rationale for some of them to be excluded, but if everybody wants out of it, then the whole bill should die.
Now that bill, of course, will now move to the full Senate for a vote.
Montana lawmakers are arguing over what type of testimony should be allowed during a hearing on a bill to block sanctuary cities in the state. House Bill 200, sponsored by Republican Representative Ken Holmland, had its first hearing in the House Judiciary Committee. It would prohibit state and local governments from putting in sanctuary policies. Those policies often mean refusing to provide information about someone's immigration status or refusing to comply with federal requests to detain someone for possible immigration violations. There are currently no cities in Montana with sanctuary policies, but supporters say they want to proactively discourage them. During the testimony, the committee chairman asked opponents of the bill to avoid talking about race or racism, saying immigration status and not race was at issue. Democrats on the committee then argued proponents of the bill had previously made inappropriate statements about undocumented immigrants' impact on communities.
To subject us in the committee to something that's off the bill, which is a violation of the rules, and second, to go down a road of supposition of what she thinks this bill was brought for, I'd still stick to my objection, sir. I don't think this is part of this committee.
We have heard testimony in this committee from others that have made suppositions about the opposition and made pretty broad statements that had no basis of fact and were not rooted in the legislation that was being brought. So if that is a criteria that you're going to apply, it needs to be applied on all sides consistently.
Now the hearing on House Bill 200 continued, with the chair asking those speaking to continue to keep race out of their testimony. The legislator passed a very similar bill in 2019, but it was vetoed by then Governor Steve Bullock. Meantime, in a surprising move, the Montana House reversed itself and voted down a bill that would have prohibited certain medical treatments for transgender youth in the state. On the bill's final bidding yesterday, 4 additional Republicans voted no, leading to its rejection 49 to 51. HB 113 said anyone under 18 in Montana could not undergo sex change surgery or get certain medical treatments for a possible change in gender. Opponents said the bill discriminated against transgender youth and interfered in personal medical decisions. The House is scheduled to take a final vote today on a separate bill that bars transgender student athletes from playing on sports teams different than their biological sex.
6:35 now back here in the Gallatin Valley. A memorial site for a Montana Highway Patrol trooper who was killed in the line of duty back in 2010 in Three Forks was vandalized, and now community wants some answers.
MTN's Annie Johnson has the full story.
Sometimes there aren't words to describe certain things, like losing your son in the line of duty and then having his memorial site vandalized.
This memorial started after David was shot and killed right here on the county road.
After the fatal traffic stop, the grieving father immediately went into action to make sure his son was never forgotten. And up until recently, there haven't been any problems.
Window on the driver's side of the patrol car was broken out. They tried to break the passenger side also.
The Gallatin County Sheriff's Department has taken over the investigation, but this father has a message to send.
Turn yourself in. We'll work through this.
The father can't think of why someone would do this other than the badge.
There's very little respect for law enforcement anymore.
The memorial did not have surveillance cameras, but Danny is looking to make several upgrades.
We get some donations from people, and this here has really opened that up. You know, believe it or not, something good is coming out of something bad.
Donations can be mailed to the family's P.O. box or through First Security Bank, but the father is already thankful for what the community has done.
It's pretty emotional for me to have these people that don't know me, don't know David, jump in and help out.
Though the father has had an outpouring of support, it still doesn't take away the pain from that tragic day his life changed.
I heard the gunshots, the gunfire exchange on that day. I was outside. I live just a half mile up the road from this location here at the park. It was a day from hell.
All the funds raised will go directly back into the memorial. Reporting in Three Forks, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
Of course, the story we're going to continue to follow here. 6:37 now, fake news in politics. It's something you've likely come across on the internet.
So how can you spot it, and will it be less prevalent with a new president?
This week is News Literacy Week, a whole week dedicated to helping our viewers and readers spot fake news stories, stop people from sharing misinformation, and learn how to tell the difference when so much does look real.
Political sport correspondent Joe St. George takes a look at how to do all of this when it comes to political news.
Fake news in politics, you can't escape it. Articles like this or this are easy to find and easy to share. Take, for instance, this photo about the National Guard sleeping at the Capitol prior to the inauguration. Just a few hours after it was taken, it popped up on a social media site with this caption: "Reports are coming in from the Capitol, massive gunfight." Not true. Congressional reporter Nate Reed with Newsy took that photo and posted it to his Twitter. He learned quickly he couldn't control where it went from there.
I'd never seen anything like it, where a photo I had taken was so grossly taken out of context.
The spread of fake news happens across all political parties, and it's growing. In 2019, there were 8.6 billion engagements on social media involving fake news. In 2020, there were 16.3 billion engagements.
Fake news now has become weaponized in politics.
Chris Halsney is an investigative journalist and lecturer at American University. He's been around newsrooms for more than 30 years.
It's getting worse.
One example is violence erupting on Capitol Hill, with some individuals believing the inaccurate articles and justifying their actions in the name of truth.
I could coach people on how to spot fake news, a fake headline. Most of them don't care anymore. People are seeking out news that matches their opinions.
But if you do care, how can you spot fake political news? Well, journalism professors say pay attention to who the writer is. What is the name of the publication? What's their history? Who pays their salary? How long has it been around? Also,
Don't just look at one news source.
but because that advice for many is not enough,
It'll show you very easily whether it's something that you can trust or something that you should avoid.
Gabby Deutsch is with NewsGuard, an emerging fact-checking company making software that libraries, businesses, and yes, families with fake news-loving relatives are installing on computers. The way it works is each time a news article appears, a green check mark or red exclamation point pops up, indicating whether you can trust it or not. The company has a conservative CEO and a liberal CEO to ensure they are not biased.
We believe that there is a large chunk of people in this country who care about getting accurate information.
One thing Deutsch says is fake political news will not be going anywhere. It's simply too cheap to create, and appealing to someone's emotions is easy.
It is profitable for people to run these websites.
In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
I've been doing this a long time. I hate the term fake news.
Agreed, Chet.
What did I tell you yesterday?
Agreed.
It's either news or it's lies.
Right.
I don't like the term fake news.
These things that to help people check, though, are so important. And I think with the events at the Capitol, we've seen how very important it is.
Right.
We need to get the truth. We need to know what to believe.
Transparency should be a part of all of that.
With our head and our intelligence and not our emotions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very important story and something we will definitely hear more on for sure.
For sure.
Well, coming up here on Montana This Morning, have you heard of coronasomnia? It's really a thing. After the break, learn what researchers are saying about it.
But first, let's check in with our friends at CBS This Morning and see what's coming up at 7 o'clock.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, President Biden pushes for more vaccines as the U.S. faces critical supply shortages. We'll look at the so-called vaccine nationalism and the threat from the European Union to prevent companies from exporting the vaccine until their needs are met. Also, fighting domestic terror is a key priority of the Biden administration after the assault on the Capitol. We'll ask a former Secretary of Homeland Security what must be done to fight extremism. And Gail talks with philanthropist Melinda Gates about the importance of preparing for the next pandemic and why world leaders should put women at the center of the COVID response. We'll see you at 7.